All right, I have, I think they call this color scheme natural white. Oh, God. Hang on. My Tower O game cards just decided to topple. Natural white, which in person is like a cream, especially this rear shell piece. It's like a cream color. So the white DSIs, I think, are a lot better than the DSI XLs. Entirely personal preference, though. Not in bad shape at all. All right, let's see. Ooh. Tape bezel after test. I wonder what that means. I'm not really helping myself by leaving vague notes, but I know the first one. Swapped screens. Top screen backlight replaced. So that is a very much an experimental de-yellowing procedure that I've been... I'm not going to... Well, that I've been trying on screens to see if I can essentially replace the backlights of screens that maybe have torn ribbon cables into yellowed screens which are otherwise fine but have yellowed edges. And sort of the idea of that is from the work of, well, myself and another person on GBA Temp, we found out that the light guide plates inside these LCDs, something about them, I don't know if they deteriorate something, I don't know if it's chemical or physical, something happens to those light guide plates where they just sort of refract light in the way that makes it so it creates the yellowing. That's really the best I can explain it because I don't quite understand it myself. But what's odd is you can also have your displays on for a period of time and sort of lessen the yellowing. So that doesn't strike me as like a physical alteration. It's not like the light guide plate was disintegrating. Chemical, I guess, is the only thing, like exposure to UV light. I don't know. I won't keep guessing. So let me turn off my light and look at it just to see how it lasted. Oh, wow. So if this is my fixed yellow one, oh, that's unfortunate. That might just be under the lens. Is it that spec? Okay. I was looking at the screen. There's a couple specks underneath the lens that are blocking the pixel. They make like little tiny black dots. That's usually something I try to fix. I was trying to make sure that it wasn't inside the top screen assembly because I have to physically take the top screen itself apart in order to get to this light guide plate. And, well, I'm flirting with the idea of just every time I open that, just dust just pouring into that thing. Once I close it up, if there's any sort of dust or debris inside of it, there's absolutely no way I would be able to get it all out. So there is some at the top. I really feel like I see... It is really hard to try and convey. Yeah, you can kind of see it. There's like a white spot. You can see the two dust particles that I'm talking about, actually. There's a white dot. And I'm having a hard time actually seeing it. I have to like really look at it. And both screens are flickering. Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to set this one aside then. So swap screens, backlight replaced, tape bezel after test. I don't know what that means. I'm just gonna put a question mark. So, and then I'll put flickering observed. Most unfortunate. So this one, I'm just gonna put in a pile of screens that flicker, and I really don't know what to do with them yet. I don't know if there's anything I can fix. They're just like, consoles are just functionally dead to me. Because I really don't think I can sell them in the state that they're in. And the problem with screen flickering is it's so random. I can't repeat it, so I can't try and track down what the hell's going on. So I don't know if it's a screen issue. I don't know if it's a motherboard issue. It just happens so infrequently that I can't test for it. So annoyingly, I'll need to put it aside. Just make it a pile of shame. I have 2 consoles in there right now. Let me check. Top screen flicker. The fact that it's like, even though it's happening only to maybe one display. I don't know. I really need to save this drawer for testing, not for screen flickering. That's an interesting one. I did not take very good notes on. Ah, okay, here's another one with screen flicker. So now I have 3. 3 that I really don't know what to do with yet. Alright, until I really get more information about screen flickering, they're just gonna have to stay there. And, well, whatever. I'm a little irritated at that, but there's nothing really I can do about that right now. So I'll move on to this bronze DSi XL. See what we got here. Battery test. I don't know if that's damage or just crud. I'm just looking at this top screen lens like, ugh. See if I can clean that off. Because usually I'll do like a very broad sweep cleaning just to make sure there's nothing's damaged. That could have been like... No, actually I don't know what it is. It's not really leaving anything, so... Just called I probably just didn't really do a good job cleaning, or... It's like a bacterial colony or something. Not like this is auger, but... There, that looks a lot better. It's a little scratched up. There's a pretty good hairline scratch right there. But it does not look deep enough for me to be worried about. I will look at it though. No, it looks good. Okay. Okay, let me kind of set up here. Open up the system settings. 1.4U. Cute. I was just looking at the top screen again to make sure it's in all good shape. So I'll be going through my sort of testing suite that I have right down here. I'm not really going to explain it super thoroughly. I'll do that during my final test, the third round of testing on this thing, just for the video, essentially the video for eBay. So that, I guess it's fair to say I haven't really developed that idea thoroughly enough for me to try and explain it, but since I conduct these I do these tests 3 times, I don't necessarily want to try to explain it 3 times every time I do it, so I'll save the really more in-depth explanation for the very final test that I do. Not so much the initial ones, just so I can sort of cycle through these consoles a lot faster. So I'll start with tactile button test, which I use an R4 card and a piece of homebrew software to test, which basically, as you see, turns the bottom screen into just a testing platform with a bunch of lights corresponding to the buttons. And I'm not so much worried about the face buttons, they usually always work, so I press them a few times, make sure they match my rhythm, and I move on. The ones that I have the most problems with are the shoulder buttons, which I'll spend a lot more time with. Pressing from the left side of the button to the right side of the button, doing slow presses, just trying to see if it responds to all of my inputs. Same with the L button, and at least so far, it all looks good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Next is a touchscreen test, which again, loading up R4 card with piece of diagnosing software. This one turns the bottom screen into a touchpad. Ooh. I'm going to chop that up to not being calibrated. Let's try that again. The screens that usually pair with these motherboards are typically not the screens that these consoles shipped with, which creates the differences in color temperature, probably. That's probably the crux of my main problem, but this is an aftermarket digitizer, so my inputs here might not be very good. I also will try not to scratch it up really. So I'm just going to be a lot more gentle on this, because the aftermarket touchscreens are a lot more... They have a texture to them, where they just kind of grab on the styluses more than usual. And as you kind of saw, all of my swirls there weren't any erratic inputs. There were nice sort of even swirls around, so it is I'm pretty sure it's an aftermarket digitizer, and if so, then it better work. So next I'm doing sound system, microphone, speakers, and the headphone jack. La 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 la! So microphone works, I do my volume button, the slider is going back and forth. I also combo this with an SD card slot test to see if it reads a song off the SD card. And now with a pair of headphones, I'm going to listen to both the speakers and both the headphone earbuds. See if sound's coming out of both. I didn't really do myself any favor by making it so quiet. Yep. Both channels for the speakers as well as the headphone jack work just fine. Now, before I get too terribly far here, I need to do 2 tests. I only do once. I need to know if the console will properly go into and out of sleep. I do that with just a little magnet. Screens turn off. Power light sort of breathes in and out. Screens turn on. Okay, it goes into sleep. And next, I go into the DSI sounds menu again. And then I'll leave it on the screen for about 2 minutes. And, well, because of that, I'll be able to at least explain this a little better. Let me write something down. Sleep and image retention. So this is to catch image retention, which to the best of my understanding is a sort of one of the major symptoms of a failing LCD display, at least in these consoles. I'm not going to pretend to understand what exactly is going on, but what I'm specifically looking for is this checkered pattern, these 2 big buttons, and as well as the checkered pattern. So after about 2 minutes, I'll swap over to the DSI settings menu, which is pretty bare bones. It's gray screens, essentially. And what I'm going to be looking for is if any of these patterns, any of these sort of asset elements transfer over to the DSI settings menu. If they do, that means that these screens are retaining an image. And to the best of my knowledge, that's due to them failing. And if I don't see anything, then to the best of my understanding, they're still good. For how long? I don't know. Maybe they're good for another 10 years or 10 months. I really can't say. I really don't have a good, robust strategy of testing these LCDs, try as I might. So this is the best I got so far. And I think so far, though it's kind of the least that I can do, it is something. It's something I know works at catching a problem. It won't be every problem, but the more I do it, the hopefully better I get. So, looks good. I don't see the checkerboard pattern. There is shading to the left side of these buttons, but to the best of my understanding, that's just how it is on the settings menu. When I say seeing that stuff in the background, I mean it is very apparent. Almost like the background of the settings menu is completely... the settings menu is almost has a different background. So, check the cameras. Cameras are one of the things I check while I'm assembling these consoles because I do not want to take the camera out, or I don't want to try and replace the camera. I would have to take apart the entire console if it was faulty. So when I'm putting these consoles together, I always check the camera to make sure they work. Oh, goodness. Checking the charge port, plug it in, software. Tower O game card. It is not your turn yet. Both indicators are saying it's charging, as well as my USB tester. What I'll do is jiggle around the charge port here to see if the light goes away, which it doesn't. That's checking to see if the charge port's still good and if the solder joints are also still good. So now we're on to game card tests. I'm going to try and explain it as I go, so it might seem a little erratic at first. So I'll slot the game card in as normal, see if it pops up, which in this case it does. And then what I'll do is put my fingers on it and shift the game card from side to side. There's a tiny bit of play in the game card slot. I'll get to what that means in a second. And then as I'm shifting it from side to side in the game card slot, I'll put pressure on it, push the game card down, shifting it from side to side, trying basically my best to get this game card to disconnect. And I'll go all the way down to the ejection point for when you hear the mechanism actually click and release the card. And I'll go a little beyond that until the game card actually bottoms out in the slot. And like I just said, I'm doing my best to try and get this game card to disconnect, because if you're playing this console, playing a game and the game card disconnects, well then the console will either freeze or just shut off, which in the era of games where you need to manually save, that can be rather disrupting. So far, I'm very happy to see that I'm not able to voluntarily get these game cards to disconnect. Every time it's disconnecting, it's because I'm ejecting the game cards. So, well, of course they're going to disconnect. And then, rather violent... I think that may have been my mistake. My finger slipped a little, so I think I ejected it on accident. Double checking here. Alright, we're good. And then this test where I'm slapping it against my open palm, that should hopefully at least be a little more logical as to, or a little more realistic as a test. Mostly you're probably not going to be touching the game card while you're playing it, like a stray finger maybe might graze it, but pushing the game card down on accidentally up to the ejection point is far less likely than, well, what the test against slapping against the open palm would simulate, which would be like if you put your console on a table, or if maybe you accidentally dropped it. Maybe you're playing in bed and you drop it on your face. Or you put your console into sleep mode because, I don't know, you're getting off a bus and you stick it in your backpack or your bag or whatever, so it kind of rattles around in there until you get around to playing it again. That can, of course, be disruptive if the game card disconnects, while if you're actively playing a game, freeze your console or shut off. It also catches to see if there's anything wrong with the battery, either physically with the battery, apparently, like if the battery is a little damaged and pillowing, as the term is apparently, or if there's something wrong with the contacts. If the battery physically disconnects, of course your console's going to turn off. So this sort of acts as a combo test of sorts, making sure that the game card doesn't disconnect and making sure that the battery doesn't disconnect. Which, like I said, in this case, I'm very pleased with the performance of this console. I'm just going to get through the rest of these cards. A little bummed out about that white console, but... But until I really get a concrete idea of how to test for and either repair or sort of mitigate screen flickering, there's really nothing I can do. Because I don't feel like they're fit to be sold. Oh. Now, I've noticed that sometimes I'll get like fluke incidents where a game card will disconnect, but I'm not able to repeat it. Ooh. Okay. I'm able to get Bejeweled to pop out. So, let me see if I can repeat it. Okay, I'm able to get it to disconnect. Let me see. What side? Okay, Being very, so I'm going really slow to see if I can catch it. So I think I'm only able to get it to disconnect past the ejection point. So that's me pushing the card as far as it will go. Like this is bottoming out the card. And sort of in those cases, I ignore it. Only because that's a point of no return. The game card is coming out. The mechanism will be ejecting that card. So if you were to accidentally, if you were playing a game and that point, or you put that card was pushed into the point of it like being ejected, I find it extremely unlikely that you would notice, for one. Like, the only real scenario I can think of is if you had it in your backpack or a bag and something pressed on the game card. Or you put something in your bag that pushed on the game card enough to where it ejected it. And by the time you go to actually take your console out, it'll shoot your game card out, so there's no chance of you catching it and saving it. I do that mainly just for fun. Well, not for fun, but just to sort of like thoroughly check that game card slot. So because it did cut out, I am just going to do a cleaning on it, which is just taking 91% alcohol. I kind of want a little more than that. I really like drenching these pins. That's better. So, like, if it were disconnecting up until the ejection point, that's one thing. But since it was disconnecting when I have the card completely bottomed out, I find a realistic, like, scenario of you coming across, like, I just can't imagine a scenario where you accidentally bottom out a card while you're playing it and you still continue to want to play it. Sometimes rubbing alcohol kind of, I think, just grabs, adds a little more friction to the little plastic backing of the game card slot, so the game cards kind of stick in there a little. Once it dries, it goes back to normal, but voila, there we go. So I am very pleased with the performance of this console. It passes test 1 with flying colors. Passes the image retention test as well. So all I can do on that front is just, well, send it to round 2. See if it will make it. Hopefully nothing crops up, which I don't think it will. I think this console will fly through these tests really nicely.